story in the video. Hopefully that makes sense, but thank you all so much for watching, and without further ado, let's get started. So, the first story I have here is called Expectations for Miss Howard's Online English Zoom, and this is written by Ice Cream 328. From Miss Howard 75@gmail.com to John Doe 2005 at eagle.net. Hello, my wonderful students. I'm so excited to have you as your teacher. I wish I could see you all in person. I do hope we become close, but I need you all to go over the syllabus, of course. Now, it seems silly, but please take this serious. Please. Number 1. Have your camera on and only put your first name, or even better, a fake one. They can't find you if they don't have a full name to go off of. Number 2. Class will be from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. If I tell you to join any earlier, do not click the link. I will excuse your absence. Number 3. If you join and my name is Miss Howard with an E, leave. That is not me. It's an imposter attempting to deceive you. They aren't very good at it though, so they can't do you any harm. If you stay, I hope you are prepared to see gory images for an hour. Trust me, you don't want to see that. Number 4. When you leave class, check outside your window. If you see no one besides your neighbors and people you know, you're fine. If you see a black figure outside, you did something wrong. Contact me if this happens and leave your home. I will handle it. Number 5. If a boy named William Howard will join, feel free to chat with him if you're male or were assigned male at birth, but be aware 4 lies often. If you are female or were assigned female at birth, don't interact with him at all. Try not to look at him either. If you speak to him, he will become very attached and try his best to find out everything about you. Then you will vanish. I don't know where he takes them, but you will never see the sun again. That's all I know. 6. After 9 a.m., I will not ask you to share your screen. If I do, that is my doppelganger, but she is more hostile and much smarter. Leave the meeting and don't open Zoom for the rest of the day. The school will understand and you won't be penalized. Number 7. If a person named he joins, he will do 3 of the following things. 1. Send a smiley face and sit and stare. Smile back and be polite when he speaks to you or to the class. He's in a good mood today. Consider yourself lucky. Number 2. He will get up and leave, and you may hear whispering. Turn off the lights and hide anywhere in your room. No matter how much he insists for you to come out, do not listen to him. I beg you. He will do terrible, unspeakable things to you. When the lights turn back on, he is gone, and it's okay to leave your hiding spot. Number 3. Send a smiley face, then leaves the Zoom. You will have 20 seconds to leave the Zoom meeting and shut off your device. If you do this in time, you'll be safe. If you don't, sprinkle salt all over the house. He hates salt, and it will provide a shield of protection. Okay, back to the regular rules. Number 8. If you join the meeting and you get an email from me that ends with a smiley face, lay down and close your eyes. He unfortunately took a liking to you and he'll be there soon. I would really hate to lose more students. Luckily, it's very rare though. Just try not to stand out. Number 9. Please don't be tardy. That should be all. I hope to see you on the first day. I can't wait to see you all. Smiley face. Wait a minute. Wouldn't this be forwarded, you wonder? Then you feel a hand around your neck and your vision starts to blur. Alright. The next one is called There Are No Songs at the End, written by Born Beach. Life is funny. It's here until it isn't. Sometimes it wastes away over the course of years. Other times it's instantaneous. It's a spark or an ember, igniting in one moment, then dying in the next. It happens so fast that you wonder if it was ever there at all. Hello. Goodbye. I think that's what you can expect your life to be. A quick thing. Here today, gone tomorrow. Up in flames, dead in a flash. It's a bold claim, and I'm not calling myself a fortune teller, but I am saying I'm privy to some details that aren't terribly fortunate for you or for me. Politics. It always comes down to politics, doesn't it? Strings, they pull them, we jerk and dance, praying that somebody somewhere has our best interests at heart. Once upon a time, I was that somebody. Honestly, I was. I began working in the government over a decade ago. Back then, I was still a wide-eyed and ambitious intern with big ideas about improving the human experience. I wanted to help. Deep down, I think that maybe I still do. But I can't. Nobody can. Here's the thing, the big secret that they don't want you to know. This is a game, all of it. But I've read the rules and I've seen the state of the board for you and for the world at large. The match is rigged. We're playing at a disadvantage. Soon, we won't be playing at all. The strange thing, or maybe the depressing thing, is that it isn't even about us. Not really. It's not about them either. The shadow brokers at the top making deals with the devil and desperately trying to usher in our annihilation. It's about something greater. It's about the pretext human existence and the destiny we've been afforded. The truth is, we're not alone in this universe. Never were. Never have been. There are things out there darker than black holes and more violent than war. Things that have been biding their time. We've been fed a steady diet of chaos and fury, of love and pleasure, all in an attempt to fill our insatiable hunger to feel. All in an attempt to ripen us for them. Once some force that has long since vanished, dealt with them. The ancient horrors beyond the veil. It subdued them, defeated them. In order to do so, it harnessed the power of creation itself. The Big Bang. It took some time, but we've determined the origin of our universe was not a product of chance, but rather an attack of desperation. It was a gamble to overcome titans too horrible to comprehend. And it worked. For a while. But now those beings are awakening again, slowly, one by one. They're lurching up from their slumbers and turning their eyes to the rarest, most empowering energy in the universe. Human emotion. Intangible and infinite, forged in the kiln of our souls. We cannot stop them, we cannot contain them. Some of us are even working to help them, bombarding the masses with media, manipulating our own thoughts. If that sounds hopeless, then just know that it is. You and I are fuel for abominations, calories for the cosmos. Our harvest is coming, and when it arrives, there will be no resistance, and there will be no songs of our passing. Humanity will cease to exist. Our spirits will be cremated in the stomachs of ancient things, and the fabric of our beings will be scattered far and wide, lost and mutilated, less than a memory. But there's another way. See, the people at the top of the plan. It's a plan we've been inching closer to towards the door. It's a plan we've been inching closer toward year by year. Soon, you'll see it spring into action. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. It begins with a panic and the drone of sirens in the streets. The world stops. Nobody knows what to do. But that's okay, because this part doesn't last long. Soon after, there's a crack of thunder. You hear screaming everywhere. There's screaming. It's terrible and awful, but it's quickly drowned by the low bass of infinity and the rush of a hurricane. Windows shatter, your bones tremble, and your skin sears, and the horizon erupts in smoke and flame. 1,000 clouds ascend to heaven, was a reality that clearly didn't have a use for the items I was taking. Over the next few months, I built up thousands, leaving behind no evidence of any sort of criminal activity whatsoever. And the more time I spent in the Deadlands, the more time I grew to love it. There, sometimes, instead of stealing, I simply took the time to experience the strange, barren reality. And when I walk through a desolate park on a cold afternoon or watch the sunset over an As I flipped the flaps open, I discovered a whole new gamut of stink. It was like opening a burning oven, but instead of a heat wave, I was met with waves of piss, sweat, shit, and putrefaction. It was so bad that I staggered back and had to force down the puke, begging to guzzle out of me. I don't think I could have handled that scent mingling with the horrors coming out of the box. I'm not ashamed to admit I ran out the door for a breath of fresh air, but in the short time I'd spent in the garage, the smell had become so ingrained in the fabric of my clothes that it clung to me like a shadow. Nothing I tried could keep the smell out of my nostrils, not air fresheners, not a face mask, not 3 showers and a change of clothes. Every second that box lay open in my garage was another second the smell was allowed a foothold in my home. I had to bite the bullet. I returned to the garage, the flaps of the box still open as though inviting me to look. I was prepared, a clothespin pinning my nostrils shut, a garbage bag in one hand, the strongest cleaner I could find in the other, and long rubber gloves to keep my skin from having to touch what was inside. But as it turns out, I needed none of those things. I wouldn't have to touch or clean the contents of that box. I would only have to suffer the nightmares every night. You see, there's no meat in that box, there was meat in that box, but it didn't come from a cow or a pig. No, it was worse than that. It was my neighbor, dead, still in one piece, but dead. I called the cops, and naturally they took me in for interrogation. It's kind of hard not to suspect the man with the corpse in his garage after all. Thankfully, they soon realized I wasn't involved. My DNA might have been all over that box. The smell might have left a mark throughout my house, but there was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence. A vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. I'm not sure if they were allowed to, or if they felt so bad for me they figured it couldn't hurt. Either way, I saw it. My neighbor was sitting in the box outside a shipping facility, laughing as he told the world how he was going to mail himself across its shoulder. Secure the plant materials to its left hand, your right hand, with this string or rubber bands. Dip your finger into the vegetable oil and press the finger onto the left side of the face, your right side. This is a snowman's left eye. As you do this, recite the following. Snowman, snowman, see my land, hollowed soil on which we stand. Snowman, snowman, bless my home, guide me back if ever I roam. please proceed with caution. This story is pretty graphic and pretty sad, so I'll put a little timestamp. I'll pin a comment with the timestamp if you want to skip to the end of this story. But it is called An Email from My Daughter's Killer, written by Double Door Bastard. Do you believe in coincidences? Seems like a funny question, doesn't it? I've never paid it much thought before now either. Perhaps I have some explaining to do. As of yesterday, it's been a year since my daughter went missing. There was never any ransom note, no remains discovered, and not even an iota of evidence to support the standard theories of foul play and kidnapping. Aside from her absence itself, the whole situation seemed freakishly clean. At only 14 years old, she's gone missing without a trace. Her name's Emily. I can say that dreaded was with confidence now. It's a bitter blessing, one that's come at great cost to all of us. When Emily disappeared, she left myself, her father, and her older brother Joseph in a state of perpetual anxiety, the limbo of For my own pride, I'd like to state that I didn't fuck her before she died. I couldn't bring myself to cross that barrier, knowing her eyes would be on me while it was happening. The thought of it disgusted me. She died, to the best of my knowledge, a virgin. Once I was fully done with her, and the euphoria of it all had passed, it dawned on me of what a terrible thing I've done. My pleasure turned to disgust, and all the sweetness that was inside of me while I was killing her turned sour. I realized that I was not meant to be a murderer, that it didn't suit me, that beyond the temporary pleasure of the act, the thought of taking, of the act, the thought. That might be a grammar mistake, but that beyond the temporary pleasure of the act, the thought of taking someone's life repulsed me. I was a fantasist who made a terrible, terrible mistake, one that cost the life of a promising young girl. If there's a grand plan out there that we're all a part of, I could feel that what I had done was a deviation from that natural law. I was disgusted at the act and at myself. This little experiment had backfired on me entirely. I was so out of my depth. Once I had gotten over the initial wave of fear and panic, I cut up Emily's body into smaller pieces that were easier to carry. I took all the pieces, wrapped them up in the woolen tarp, and burned them with lighter fluid in the woods. After that, I buried the bundle of charred bones and ashes, wishing I could have just forgotten about all of it. Killing Emily and doing the things I did to her were not acts of courage. I realized that over the past year, they were acts of obsession and cowardice, of a person not strong enough to overcome their darker urges. I've been racked with guilt, surrounded by reminders of the life I've taken and can never give back. That's why I've decided to do the courteous thing and let you know I've decided to take another life. Mine. All I can ever be is a danger to the people around me, a time bomb destined to blow up and hurt another innocent person. The only altruistic thing for a person in my position to do is take myself out of the picture. I'm sorry for what I did to Emily. I don't expect you to forgive me, nor do I think I deserve it. I just hope this gives you some sense of closure and allows you to move on. My sincerest apologies. After I wrote that terrible email, I cried for hours. I didn't have that violent reaction because I believed I'd been contacted by my daughter's killer, but just because I felt like someone was playing a horrific joke on my family after we'd been through so much. And on the anniversary of our Emily's disappearance, no less, I didn't show my husband or my son. I couldn't bear to. I just bore the cross myself and wore a brave face for them, knowing the anniversary was hard on all of us. I wouldn't let the monster on the other end of that email tear up my family. But this morning, I heard two almighty bangs ring out from my Joseph's bedroom. By the time his father and I had forced open the door, it was too late. He somehow got his hands on a gun and fired 2 shots, one through his laptop and another through his forehead. So with this in mind, I'll ask you again, do you believe in coincidences? Alright, next up is How to Successfully Ransom a Child, written by Easy Misery. I love that name for some reason. Alright, hello, no sleep. I've lurked on this site for a while, but I feel it is time to share some things with you. Honestly, I'm only doing this because I'm sick of hearing about how people kidnapping kids and doing it all wrong. I have successfully ransomed over 12 children. Some might call me an expert. I want to tell you how to do it correctly. Maybe then you'll start doing it right. Sorry if I take weird pauses, I have hiccups. I'm going to use my most recent conquest as an example. Her name is Sophie. You don't need to know my name. The first step is to choose a kid. Gender doesn't matter, but I prefer girls. If you want the best ransom, you'll want to pick a family that is tight-knit. The more the parents love the kid, the more they'll give up to get it back. Choose a family in town you don't live in. Ideally, it should be at least an hour away. You must have no connection to the family. They don't know you, but you will learn everything about them. I picked Sophie because she had braided pigtails. I liked that. She was just big emails and phone calls are too easily traceable. A letter you can simply place in any mailbox. Leave the return address blank. Keep her quiet, no one can hear her, but silence makes it better. In your letter, you'll explain that you have the child. You will not harm the child as long as the family is willing to pay the ransom. As far as the amount of money, it needs to be... I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. It needs to be a reasonable amount, significant enough to warrant an abduction, but low enough that a typical family could raise the amount. I usually stick between $20,000 to $50,000. An average family can get a loan for that amount if needed. Ideally, the letter should arrive the day after the kid is taken. The family will have already called the police. This letter will incite even more fear. You cannot go to the house. Do not drive by. Do not go to the town, no matter how much you want to. And you will want to. You may watch the news. You may rub the strands between your fingers. You may plan your next move, but nothing else. In the first little letter, you'll simply say that you will call with more instructions. Do not call. The family will be waiting by the phone. They will not leave the house. The FBI may have been called. A wiretap will be placed. Every conversation will be recorded. You cannot let them hear your voice. Sophie's hair tastes like laundry soap and freshly mowed grass. Next, it is time to write your second letter. It should be sent 2 weeks after the first. In this letter, you will include something written by the kid. This is to prove that it is still alive. Make it write about things you would have no way of knowing. You should also include a picture of it, fully dressed, with the newspaper. The letter will remind them of the ransom amount. Say you are anxious to get the money. You will contact them soon with the drop location. Remember the smoothness. Sophie, soft, sweet, syrup. After the second letter is another waiting period. This one is longer. It has to be at least a few months. That's when you will be tested. You will want to call them to reach out, but trust your instincts. The prize is worth the waiting. Spend time with Sophie. Tell her about your father. Your secrets are safe with her. You can trust her. When the wait is over, you will send the last letter. In it, you will include a picture of the kid in different clothes, a haircut, but smiling, holding another newspaper. It can write something to its parents, but it isn't really important. What does matter is your exact instructions. The money must be in cash and untraceable. The drop point must be in the middle of a popular wooded area in the early morning, around 5 a.m. The area should be at least an hour away. The entire family must bring the money to the site. No cops are allowed. The family must wait an hour at the location with the money in the spot. Then the kid will be released to them. The reunited family must then return home immediately and never speak of this event again. Of course, the family will not follow all of the rules. Police will no doubt join them at the site, hiding. But that's okay. You never planned to go there in the first place. After all, Sophie's been dead since the day after you took her. She has to die. It's part of the plan. You'll use her, love her, take her hair, and then she's gone. It is gone. It is now with the other it's. Bloated, empty shells. Deflated balloons hanging from the ceiling. You have to make it write 2 letters when you take it home. You tell it what dates to write. You take the 2 pictures at first date too. Just edit the newspaper to match the correct dates. It's not hard. The waiting is hard. But the prize is worth the wait. Silken braided pigtails that you can suck on the ends as you drive to the house. It tastes like little dead girl. But the hair was already dead. No one will be at the house when you get there. Everyone, including the authorities, will be at the drop site. Now it is their turn to wait for something that will never come. You have to break into the house. This is where you will collect your ransom. You may take anything that is of any worth. Televisions, jewelry, computers. The computers do not have a password. Most don't. There's another task you must complete. Delete all photos of a smell its hair. You own it now. They will never recover. All their treasured items are gone. You've stolen their sanity, joy, safety. They will never be able to trust again. And the fact tastes almost as good as the pigtails. So there you go. That's how you successfully ransom a child. Now all of you out there have no excuse to do it wrong. Alrighty, now for the last one, called When Your World Falls Apart. This is my favorite story out of all of them. It is so well written. I like it a lot. Alright. This is written by AL_365. To be honest, I don't have much hope for Carol. Her head is now bald and covered in red blisters where she scratched too much. She refuses to eat, has to be restrained to stop hurting herself, and her only interaction with psychiatrists is to attack them. Most cases of insanity are random or due to a chemical imbalance, but sometimes I get the impression that the victim didn't have a choice, that insanity is the only option when your world falls apart. You know what every parent's worst nightmare is? To lose a child. 4 years ago, Carol had everything. She had Tim, her loving husband, and together they had Norman, 6 years old, and Chloe, 4 years old. The kids were healthy and smart, and Norman had just entered school. They owned a large yellow house with a nice backyard, were good friends with their neighbors. And Tim and Carol had everything they could have ever wished for. Then Norman disappeared. Just a few months after he had started school on a warm and sunny Tuesday evening, Norman didn't come home. Several of his classmates saw him leaving school and getting on the bus. The driver thought he remembered Norman getting off while leaving the bus. Norman tripped and nearly fell, but rather than cry, he laughed about it. What a great kid, thought the driver. And that's the last time Norman was seen. The police searched the neighborhood, investigated for months, even followed leads out of the country, but Norman was never seen again. And Daryl, Kim, and Chloe, not even old enough to understand what it means that your brother won't come back, could do nothing but go to the police station every morning and beg them to do more. Of course, they'd put up posters, rallied the neighbors. They did everything, but Norman was gone. It's not surprising that Carol became very protective of Chloe. She quit her job to make sure that Chloe would never be alone when Chloe started school, an expensive one, with safety fences all around. Carol would do everything to make sure that Chloe would safely get into the school door in the morning and would never be alone when she left school in the evening. They picked up Chloe's friends for play dates just to make sure that the children would play at the safest possible place. Carol, in other words, became overprotective. It took Tim more than a year to convince her that he too would take good care of Chloe, but there was still no birthday party at a friend's place where Carol would not stand in the corner, making sure at every step that nothing could happen to Chloe. Sure, her fear was excessive. Chloe wasn't even allowed to light or blow a candle or to walk into the basement or go out anywhere alone. That's why Chloe was always happy when her mother was shopping. Tim, too, took care of Chloe, even allowed her to play in the garden on her own. You know what's worse than losing your child? Losing both of your children. 2 years ago, a bit more than 2 years after Norman's disappearance, Tim was taking care of Chloe. Carol was shopping for gifts for Chloe's upcoming birthday, and taking her to the mall would have been too dangerous. As Carol had always pointed out, most childhood abductions, after all, happen in malls. It was a busy Saturday, and Carol was gone for nearly 4 hours. Then she got the call. Tim later described to the police that he was reading on the sofa when Chloe disappeared, that she had played in the garden for several hours, something that she knew would stop the moment Mommy came home, so she always enjoyed his losing her second child, she had done everything to make sure Chloe was safe, and she still disappeared. Carol first went into a full-blown depression and tried to kill herself 2 times. First, she used razor blades, but when Tim found her and brought her to the hospital in the psychiatric unit, Carol tried it a second time by ramming a pen into her throat. It took 6 months until Carol was able to return home. The physical wounds had long since healed, but getting Carol out of the depression took much longer. And even then, when she returned home, she was still unstable. Tim took a sabbatical year from his job to care for her. The money was a bit tight, but both her parents helped Carol and Tim out with their support. But because of the distance, they weren't able to visit very often. Carol spent nearly 6 months in Chloe's room, crying into teddy bears and hugging Barbies. Tim did the household chores, cooked and went shopping, and arranged for Carol to meet her old friends and colleagues whenever possible. Their neighbors and friends were all very supportive. But when all was said and done, Chloe couldn't be found. The police investigated for more than a year after the disappearance. They even questioned neighbors and friends, even Tim and Carol themselves. The direct neighbor was shortly even in custody, but when the neighbor's alibi turned out to be a solid, a speed camera shot showed that she was too far away from the house at the time Chloe disappeared. She too was released. More than a year after Chloe's disappearance, Carol started to get better. She started cooking and cleaning again, and she finally allowed Tim to give some of Chloe's old toys, some of which had belonged to Norman, to charity. A few times she even went out on her own again, but as Tim confided to a few friends, every night Carol would still cry herself to sleep. But at least Tim said she stopped blaming him. She stopped accusing him every day of being responsible for Chloe's disappearance. For more than a year, he had heard the same message every day. It's your fault. pieces, a ribcage, an entire arm, a shin bone, and a foot, still in small boy shoes. That's when they realized there wasn't only one child buried in the garden. It was two. You know what is worse than finding the pieces of your children? Living with their murderer for more than 4 years. Tim was arrested at work. The police excavated the whole garden, carefully sieving through the soil, not to miss a single bone, like the small one that Gerald found first and just thrown away. Norman's finger. They found the bodies of 2 dead children around 6 years of age. The girl, the coroner determined, was buried for around 2 years. The boy for around 4. Still, it seemed that it must have been somebody else. Tim denied his guilt, denied that he would never do anything to his children, and Carol believed him. It cannot have been him. He was the best father I've ever seen. And then at the bottom of an old metal trunk in Tim's DIY room, wrapped in old towels, police found the heads. Only when she saw them, when Carol herself identified the 2 moldered heads as those of her own children, Carol did break down. As said, I don't have much hope for Carol. She's now here for 4 weeks. There's no hair left on her head. Every day she causes another dark blue or